What's going on, guys? Dayton here, aka Dr. AUTFLOWER, and we're back to you with another question and answer. Today we got some really good ones, and we're going to get right into it. Before we do, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you're new here. We go through a lot of AUTFLOWER information, and we're going to be putting out more here in the future, so stay tuned, subscribe, and if you want to stay notified, make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications when my new videos go up. But let's get right into the question and answers. So Jug5469 says, how many weeks does it take for autos to produce seeds? So that's a really good question, and if you are breeding for seeds, it does take 4 to 5 weeks. So it definitely is about timing. You do not want to wait till past like the 5th week. After the 5th week, it kind of gets a little iffy to start making seeds. You could, but it's definitely best to do it on the 4th week when there's a lot more pistils being produced by the plant and it's just going into flower. That's probably the best time. Technically, you could start around week 3 when it very first goes into flower. That is possible, but I think it's best to wait around week 4, 4.5. That's probably the best time to do it because your plants are probably going to finish at week 9 anyways, so that gives you ample amount of time to develop seeds. And the best way to check and see if those seeds are done is just it's very visible where the seeds are, so you can just open them up, and once they're nice and brown and not green anymore, then they're pretty much good. If they're still green or a light color, then you know they are not done yet and they need to keep going, so don't harvest yet if creating seeds is the main thing you want to do. He also asks, he's not sure about the light differences needed for autos. Autoflowers, it's best to run them at least 18 hours on, 6 hours off. From what I found, this is the best and most efficient light schedule. It seems like autoflowers do need a bit of rest. They do produce better with rest. So 6 hours of rest gives them ample amount of rest. And that's depending on your situation. Some people have rooms where it's kind of cold, so they want to run the lights longer so it stays warm longer. I've done that myself, where in winter times I run it like 20 hours on, 4 hours off. It helps keep the room a bit warmer when the other lights are off in the other tents. Here's an interesting one. Jonathan Bigger asks, he's going into flowering and it's only 6 inches tall, and he's wondering if it's going to be okay. So from all of my experience with autoflowers, if they start flowering at 6 inches, that's usually a really bad sign, and they're probably not going to get much bigger than that. They might double in size, so it might get to 1 foot, and you might have like one just really thick cola. I've had that before, where it's just like one massive, just like massive cola, and that's it. But if your plants are doing that, they're flowering before they're even growing much, then that is a sign that they are stunted, and something happened along the way that stunted them. Could be many factors, it's really hard to say, but something stunted them along the way and they couldn't handle it, so they just went into flower, and that's the state they'll stay in until they're done. So when that happens, they don't get much bigger. And for me, it's almost like more worth it just to throw it out and start over with something different, mitigate the issue that caused it, and go on from there, because at best, sometimes it might bring in 5 grams, 7 grams if they're like that size. But other than that, it's not really worth it. So the amount of room they take up for what they're going to put off is just not worth it. Or if you don't mind, you just want to finish it off, you can definitely do that. I've actually had some amazing flower from like some really small plants. Is it more condensed? Is the flavors more condensed into just one single massive bud? Hard to say, but I've had some really good flower off tiny little plants. John Tyler asked, do autoflower leaves fade when they are finishing up? So you want the plant to be eating the nutrients that's left in the leaves to finish off. You don't want it to be still feeding on the nutrients in the ground. I guess it's different for organics, but for synthetics, like what I use, advanced nutrients, I want there to be no nutrients left in the soil. I want it to be completely washed out, and then I want the plants to kind of start eating themselves, and that's when you know it's using up the nutrients inside the plant. This is usually a sign of a good flush, and usually comes out with the best tasting crop. Michael Wenstrup asks, how often do you feed your girls when you were doing top dressing? What was the schedule like? So when I was doing top dressing, it was pretty much for autoflowers. It was like one time after the first month or so, and that was it. I wasn't doing any more top dressing after that. For organics, you definitely need to have your schedule more down packed, and you do not want to miss it, because once you miss it, because with organics you won't notice it until a week or so later on, and it could look like they're starting to eat themselves, and by then it's a little too late. And missing a scheduled feeding can mess up important growth, so that is something to watch out for autoflowers. It can decrease your yield. So if you're going to go the organic route, make sure you're on top of your schedule, and once you find your schedule, stick to it and don't get lazy with it. Chris P. Bacon asks, do I leave my LED lights off when my autoflowers pop the soil and start opening up? The two leaves bent and shriveled before proper leaves could form. So pretty much what you want to do is, in that situation, sounds like you have your light too close or it's too intense. So you would want to turn it down a bit or make it further away from the plant. You don't want to just not have light. You do want light, because if there's no light, they'll just keep growing and stretching until they fall over searching for light. So you don't want that. Check out my videos where I talk more about PAR. There is apps for your phone where you can use it to check your PAR amounts. For baby plants breaking the soil, 100 to 200 PAR is definitely perfect amount. More than that, you can start frying your plants and slowing growth down, causing stunting, and decreasing your yield later on down the road. Boot Booterson says, do you ever use the water from your fish tanks on your plants to feed? No, but you can. There's lots of people do. There is a thing called fish ponics, so it's hydroponics with fish water, because there's fish waste in it. It creates nutrients and it can grow the plants. I do grow plants in my tanks, but I've never used it on my plants growing in my rooms, because I don't really want the fishy smell in there. You definitely could. I know lots of people who do and have great results. Definitely a really interesting growing technique if you want to look up fish ponics. Really cool stuff, and people get some really nice organic crops with that, so definitely check that out. Who knows, maybe one day we'll do autoflower fish ponic grow, try it out and see how it goes, just as a little tester. Could be a really cool grow series, so maybe we'll try it out. Teddy Mac asks, if an autoflower is obviously not flowering, after I manually flip to 12 and 12, do I remain on 12 and 12 until harvest, or go back to 20 on, 4 off after a strong sign of bud formation appears? Definitely an interesting question. Long story short though, if a plant is doing that and it needs to be flipped to 12 and 12 light schedule, that means you're going to have to remain on that, and it is actually a photo period, not an autoflower, and you're going to remain on that until the entire grow is done. So hopefully you don't have a tent full of autoflowers that's going to affect or something. That is definitely one of the downsides when that happens. So it is nice to have a photo period tent to move a plant into flower like that if you need to. So Red Ghost Outdoors asks, do you have any recommendations for lighting intensity for early germination to keep the plants from legging and stretching? So if that's your worry, you're going to want to be around at least 200 PAR. And then you want to slowly start going up as the days go by, and you'll look for signs of stress or anything. If you're trying to keep it as max as possible with your best growth, you want to slowly turn up your PAR little by little each day, but like tiny amounts, and always be checking the PAR. Make sure you're not going like large amounts. You pretty much want to stay from like 200 to 250 PAR when they're in the baby stages. You should be totally fine without getting legging and them stretching up, so that's probably your best bet. You don't want to give them too much light, and you will start knowing when you give them too much light, because they'll start like curling and like acting stressed. You want to look for those signs, and then if you do see them, you want to ease off on them. But I think that's it for the question and answers, guys. If you guys got your own questions you want to have featured, make sure you put it in the comment section below, and I will get to it in the next episode. Hope you guys are doing awesome and your gardens are doing awesome. Hope you guys are keeping warm during these winter days. It's getting pretty damn cold up here, so I think right after that I might start a new garden run. So let's see. I'm feeling a little inspired, and yeah, I think it's time to get the thumb green again. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe if you're new here. And until next time, guys, peace out, and we'll catch you guys later.